In American society, money is a taboo topic. We're taught at a young age it's improper to talk about it, but we're also bombarded with messages about the power and importance of money in our everyday lives. And by not talking about it, we miss out on the skills and lessons we need to effectively understand and financially plan. That changes today. Welcome to Money Tales. Hosted by Sandy Brager and Cami Doder, Money Tales brings more than 35 years of combined professional experience in personal finance to demystify money and demonstrate what it's like to speak openly about personal financial matters. Join us each episode as they interview modern-day movers and shakers about how money decisions intertwine with their daily lives in order to give you better insight into productive financial conversations. Subscribe today and register for our blog Fathom at aspiriant.com/podcasts to increase your money mojo. And now, here's Cami and Sandy.
What if retiring early isn't just about having enough money, but about designing a life where time becomes your most valuable asset? Former Meta executive Serene Lewis Lyles shares how she planned her exit from a billion-dollar ad business to retire at age 52 and move to Portugal.
Here are 3 key money topics Serene hits on in this conversation. First, creating financial agreements like prenups with your romantic partner isn't about planning for failure. It's about protecting what you've built for future generations. Second, bridge to your retirement. Consider negotiating reduced hours to test your next chapter instead of going cold turkey. And third, if you're moving to a different country, don't assume you'll experience a lower cost of living off the bat. Instead, budget double your expected expenses for 1 year to cover setup costs. Now it's our pleasure to bring you Serene Lewis Lyles' Money Tales.
Welcome to the Money Tales conversation. I'm Cami Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager.
Sandy, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today with our guest, Serene Lewis, who we met through our colleague, Greg Schick. Serene's current role got me thinking about the importance of succession in our business, in the independent wealth management business, because succession means retirement.
It does mean retirement for the partner who is leaving the organization to retire, but it also means maintaining the business and our alignment with our clients, which is a really key important part. We see clients as the key stakeholder in our ecosystem, along with our owners, our professionals, and the vendors that we work with. We always focus on getting that ecosystem well cared for and balanced.
And it's so important. We had a colleague who just retired, one of our founding partners, Mike, who's off to travel the world and create new experiences. But people sometimes feel excitement and other times anxiety about leaving work behind. And I'm curious, what emotions do you hear when clients talk about retirement?
It's often an exciting time if the retirement has been planned, if it's been a goal of the client to leave their career after some period of time. What I've noticed among our clients that I work with is there's a huge amount of excitement, a feeling of reinvigoration toward life because they now are free to do other things. And by the way, our clients tend not to retire. There's always other activities they're involved with, whether it's being on the board of a company, being on an advisory board, doing philanthropic work, teaching, volunteering. Everyone seems to be busier during their retirement than while they were working. Sometimes there is a little bit of apprehension because when folks retire, that's their opportunity to begin living off the portfolio that they have built and other income streams if they have them. The way that they fund their lifestyle changes dramatically, and that can be an interesting transition for folks. Some people are fearful of it, but we do a lot of comprehensive planning to make sure that clients feel as comfortable as they can and as confident as they can be about how they'll be maneuvering their financial life during retirement.
Those conversations are so important to bring out the emotional part too. You have the numbers and then like the emotional aspect.
It's so fun.
Well, it's my pleasure to turn our conversation. Serene, welcome to the Money Tales podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Would you briefly introduce yourself and share a couple pivotal moments that really impacted who you are today?
I'm Serene Lewis Lyles. I currently live in Portugal, having officially, quote unquote, retired a year ago from a senior director role at Meta. I was leading the content design team that is behind Meta's $1 billion plus ads business. The whole time I was at Meta, had a hard deadline for myself for when I was going to retire, and feel grateful and recognize that there was a lot of planning around actually making that happen. That's how I got to retiring at that time and then moving to Portugal. I always wish this for young people now and throughout my career. It started with an amazing guidance counselor when I was in high school. I took one of those career aptitude tests. I don't even know if they do them anymore. When I did mine, it was even. I could be an architect or I could go into marketing. My mom said to me, "You are good at math, but you don't actually like math. Maybe marketing is the path for you." When I met with my guidance counselor, she was like, "Great, if you're going to go into marketing, you should study journalism. And the best school in the country for journalism is Northwestern University." I applied early. It's the only place I applied. Good thing I got in. It was similar to my name. I'm sometimes a little bit easygoing, a little calm, a little too peaceful, maybe. Having someone say, if you actually want something, you need to chase it, was perfectly timed and exactly what I needed to hear in the moment. So that was number one. And then number two, fast forward decades, it was actually because of an Experian article on prenups that when I was partnering with my now husband and we were combining our households, he owned a house, I owned a condo in San Francisco. And when we were blending those households, we weren't married yet, but we created a document that tracked this was his, this was mine, and here's how I was investing in what was his. And if anything ever happened to us as a couple, here's how we would manage that asset that we were jointly investing in. For me, that pivotal moment with that article was recognizing that an agreement like that isn't preparing you to not have a successful relationship, to break up, but it's protecting what you have worked so hard for and what this person who you love and are partnering with has worked so hard for the next generation. You're doing wealth management, you're doing generational wealth protection. I just really appreciated that framing of that article from Experian and brought it into a money conversation with Cliff, my now husband. And I feel like it's really laid a foundation of safety around money for both of us.
Serene, that's so beautiful. We had no clue that you read this article. And so thank you for sharing it while we're talking today. And there's pride in, well, Sandy and I are smiling because that's why we write this content. We really want to help the world. And I love how you framed it, that it helped you understand that it's not about assuming the marriage isn't going to work. It's about being thoughtful and prompts for those conversations. So that's so cool.
And I actually, before reading that article, had never thought about the fact that you could create agreements that made it so that if you had something together, here's how to be protected, but also here's how to think about if family inherits, but then your children get divorced. How do you think about protecting, okay, you've built this for your family and then your child gets divorced, regrettably, of course, but you don't want grandma's ring or grandpa's investments in Netflix from ages ago to suddenly end up in a completely different family when you've been building for your own. I just really appreciated that framing.
Oh, it's incredible. Thank you. Could we go to your backstory? When you were growing up, Serene, how was money handled in your home?
My parents split up when I was pretty young. They separated when I was 2, maybe 3. My name really is Serene. I was born in the early 70s.
So beautiful.
Thank you, but a little painful when you're in elementary school. My name is a reflection of my parents, which is that they were hippies. I think when they met, they were both protesting the Vietnam War and about going back to the land and this sort of thing. And throughout their courtship, marriage, and then my young life, they realized that they had really different futures that they wanted for themselves. So my mom is a super striver. I think she has something like 13 degrees and certificates, something in that vein. She's amazing. She's awesome. My dad is somebody who really values control over his time. He values it way more than a paycheck. And so he's probably had more jobs in his lifetime than the three of us combined. He's willing to leave a role if it's taking up too much of his time. When they split up, They were coming from a farm. They just moved to the city. Neither one of them had anything financially. My mom, as a single parent, went back to school. She was studying engineering. She became a civil engineer. That was her first or second degree in a long list. And my dad was freestyling. When I would spend time with both of them, I would feel this pinch around money in very different ways. I could see with my mom, I literally experienced and had conversations with her even as a very, very young child about saving to buy our first car. Whereas when I was with my dad, one of my core memories with him is him picking me up for a weekend and opening his wallet and showing me that it was empty and sort of flapping it like, oh, look at all the dust coming out of there. Really, he would set expectations for, we're going to have a really cheap weekend, but we're going to enjoy each other's time. When I think about how money was talked about, there was this passive way of addressing it, and then there was this very front-footed way of talking about it. What I carried into my own life is, one, with my husband's children, I never wanted them to have that feeling of me opening the wallet and flapping it at them. And two, I am a super budgeter. You mentioned your colleague and my friend Greg earlier. Greg and I laugh because we are both people who love looking at our finances, looking at our money, looking at our budgets and checking in on ourselves. And I could do that almost every day. That's how money was handled early. I love watching the little monies grow. I love thinking about, okay, it went down a little bit, but why do I think that happened? And then how's my budget handling it? Okay, investments went down a little bit, all of that sort of thing. For some reason, it just lights me up.
This is so interesting, Serene, how you've developed your own relationship with money coming from the background that you came from. And you mentioned earlier about being very intentional about your deadline for retiring from Meta. I could read into that and say, time means a lot to Serene too. But pull that together for us, because you're someone who's looking at your personal finances with curiosity and maybe some other emotions, and yet you set a deadline. How did you come up with that deadline and why?
I fully credit my dad for the value that I also actually place on being able to control my time. Throughout my career, I would make very active choices of, I am going to take this role. I'm probably going to work really long hours. I might work weekends. I'm going to get to a certain level. I expect that, okay, if I accepted a certain salary when I started, that I'm working towards the next thing or the next thing, whatever that might be. While having this very hard charging career, I had set this goal, I think it was somewhere between 20 and 25 years ago, for myself, of just being able to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to have the big career. I'm going to hopefully love it, which thankfully I did. And when I have put all the pieces together, when I've made the plan, when I've saved the right amount of money, and thankfully I have a great wealth manager who helped me identify what that was early on. Once all those things are in place, I am going to take my time back, because my perspective on time is that it is truly our only non-renewable resource. We're not getting more. You can't make more. I think a few episodes ago, one of you said that for you, money is an octopus because you can always regrow that arm if it gets chopped off. With time, you're just lobbing off the legs as time goes by. And I really want to make sure that I have an opportunity to not only have a great career, but have a life that by my own definition is exceptional, is exciting, is full and rich and vibrant. And working until I'm 65 or 75 or whatever, for me, that isn't it.
So you're very clear on your goals. And I'm curious, Serene, as you were working and having that exciting career that you loved, was there pressure that you felt that you put on yourself to achieve this retirement goal? Because there was a certain amount of money you were wanting to create and accumulate by the time you retired? Or were you more, whatever happens, happens. I have that deadline and I'm going to commit to it?
I didn't feel pressure. There were actually times when I would sometimes a little bit freak myself out, and definitely completely freak my mom out by walking away from a role. Another example of a pivotal moment for myself was I was working in biotech and was not enjoying that role anymore. Felt like I'd reached the top of what was possible within that company, was making a great living, had stock options, et cetera, but decided to quit, not look for another job, and take 6 months off to do some creative writing, to really think about what I wanted next for myself. When I made that decision, to your point, I didn't say, oh, but if I do that, I won't be able to retire when I said I would. Instead, I chose this other element, which is having that plan for what do you do when you retire. I wanted to see, do I want to be a creative writer when I'm done? Do I want to write kids' books? Do I want to write middle grade fiction or YA or whatever? Taking that time actually answered that question for me, which is no, I do not. And when I came back from that time off, during that time, I kept getting calls from people. Are you available? Are you taking freelance work? What are you up to? Are you looking for a role? And that was super reassuring for me that it's okay if I take a break. I have built a career that people recognize and I will be able to come back to it. And actually, when I did come back to my career, within 2 years, I was making double of what I was making at the biotech company. For me, that was very reaffirming.
Big decisions, they're hard. Little decisions can be hard too. But you've talked about these big decisions and you've taken time, you've really processed them. How do you process money in that big decision? You're trying to figure out your next career or retirement. How do you think about it? Because I'm seeing someone who there's no fear around money.
I am very human. One of my greatest fears is, for some reason, the market does the 5% worst upper expectation, that sort of thing, that I become poor when I am really too old to re-earn what I need to survive. It is a strong fear motivator for me. And it is why, even when I was thinking about retiring, I actually retired 2 years later than my goal date. That was close, all things considered. But I saw that if I retired when I said I was going to, if I was an absolutist about that, I was going to have to live in a more constrained budget, which I've done before, absolutely could have done again. But I wasn't in the confidence zone that I wanted to be in as far as success in retirement. And I have a retirement coaching practice now where I talk a lot about successful retirement. That means having a plan and having the finances. A third leg of that stool is really having your community around you and having them understand what you're doing and you being clear and having these conversations with them. It was easier for me to delay that dream by 2 years because as I was approaching my initial deadline, which was 50, I realized that I didn't have the plan in place. I didn't know what was Monday going to look like, my first day of retirement. I was able to use those last 2 years of my career to get really clear what my first 5 years was going to look like, and also to just sock away a little bit more. So I feel really confident going into retirement.
Serene, I appreciate you sharing your vulnerability about your fears. That's huge. Your fear is a very common one that many people face. So thank you for putting that on the table. It sounds like you were working with your financial advisor to do this planning at that time to give you the confidence about the exact timing. I also appreciate that you talked about this experimentation with retirement because I think that can be quite effective. One of the things that a lot of people face, and I'm sure this is what's compelling you to the work that you're doing, is they get to retirement, they've been focused on that goal, but they haven't thought about what they were going to do with their time, with their energy. And that can also impact their identity because I've been working in this career for a certain period of time. That's part of my identity. If I cut cold turkey and I don't know what I'm going to do, my identity can be a little lost on me. I'm curious, how are you thinking about retirement now? What does the first 5 years look like now that you're a year in? And how are you beginning to paint the picture for the time beyond that?
I 100% agree with you that for many, their career isn't just part of their identity, it's actually their full identity. You go to a cocktail party, you talk about work, or somebody asks you, oh, nice to meet you. What do you do? And right away, it's the title, it's who they do it for. Part of what I bring to my practice is a little bit of that experience of I work at Meta. People know Meta. They probably have a strong emotional reaction to it, but they recognize that it is one of the biggest companies in the world. They recognize being a senior director there is no small effort. Having walked away from that myself and thinking about, okay, I don't want to meet people now that we're in a new country. I don't want to meet people at parties or at lunches or whatever and be resting on what I did. I want to get to know people as who I am as a more holistic person. So yes, I worked in tech. I worked in biotech. I went to a school that I think is great, but I'm also interested in making and art and love food and happen to be married to a former executive chef who also then worked in tech. And there's a lot of richness there. After a couple months, we moved to Portugal. We were still building a house here. So there was plenty to occupy my brain when we first got here, plus learning a new language, all of that. But I realized that what I wanted to do is still have a purpose-filled life. When I think about the next 5 years and maybe beyond, my purpose is to help people design what their next chapter looks like. What does the next phase of their own lives look like? At the same time, I realize that I have a language to learn. I'm still building my community here. I'm still, of course, staying in contact with my community back in the States, friends and family. I think about my time still in a very structured way. I have a framework that I use every day to do a reflection about how did I spend yesterday? What could I have done better? How am I going to spend today? And how is that laying the foundation for tomorrow? For me, it's thinking about the micro moments as a way of building towards, okay, 5 years from now, I want to be fluent in Portuguese. I still want to have this retirement coaching practice, but I want to still kind of be retired and have time for 3-hour lunches with friends or to jaunt off to Cologne to see Sting. That's happening in October. I agree with you that everybody comes into retirement. Some people are afraid that retirement means you will be forced to sit on a porch in a rocker for the rest of your life. And people avoid that for as long as they can. But if you have a plan, if you have a purpose, then it's more exciting.
Serena, I was just in a conversation where people were talking about what would I do? And there was another person who is more in the place of what we might consider retirement. And her comment was, are you kidding me? Get curious. Try. There's just a world out there. So I want to turn this to your experience now. When you started this practice, you've had your own experience. We've all had conversations. What are you surprised by in your coaching of clients around retirement?
To your point around getting curious, I am regularly surprised at the number of things that people are thinking about when prompted for retirement. I have a client who works in tech, and with a little bit of coaching and provocation, we finally got to a place where they admitted that what they really want to do is be a bowling coach.
I love that.
This hadn't even occurred to me as a role, as a job, as a thing.
Everything's possible.
Everything is possible. You could go from working at a giant corporation, highly esteemed role, and instead become a highly esteemed bowling coach in your community. I love that. The things that people want to do and are either afraid to step into or just haven't admitted to themselves, that really surprises me. The other thing that surprises me is the frequency with which, through coaching, we realize that people haven't thought about or acknowledged that there's a bridge between working and retirement. Are you on the weekends thinking about what it will look like 2 years from now? Are you maybe winding down your career where you negotiate, I want to work half days, or I want to work 3 days a week, or whatever? You've worked really hard to get to where you are. You probably have more power than you think to ask for what you want. And using that time of, okay, maybe I'm going to reduce my salary, but I'm going to increase the thing that I think I want to do. That sometimes leads people to really not feel that much of a financial burden when they transition from high-powered career to the next thing, because they've actually built a whole practice that takes care of that.
I love that. You don't have to jump into the deep end. You can wade into the shallow end and get to the deep end when you're ready.
Exactly. Yeah. And retirement is as deep or shallow as you want it to be. There's no pressure to all of a sudden you have to take ballroom dancing classes and go on cruises like you're an AARP commercial. It can look like, oh, this year I'm reading a book a week, or this year I'm moving to Portugal, whatever it might be. I really hope that more people can see, to your point, that with a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of self reflection, that depending on your finances, the world can be your oyster.
That's right. And you mentioned the move to Portugal, which is a pretty common goal of many people that we see in our practice is retiring to a different country, either permanently or for some period of time. And that can have its own money adventures. As we wrap up this conversation, I'm wondering if there are any insights that you have as someone who has moved abroad and had to navigate not only a new country culturally, but also the financial system. What tips and tricks do you have as a result?
You're right. A lot of people are choosing to move abroad. And part of that choice is because they have heard or know from experience that the place that they're moving to has a lower cost of living than wherever they live in the States. One thing that I advise people is don't assume that that lower cost of living will be felt in your first year. You are going to have standing up costs. Our first year budget was double of what we expect our annual budget to be going forward. We knew that we were going to need to buy a car. We made the unfortunate decision that I do not recommend anyone do of shipping one of our cars from the States, getting that registered.
Oh,
Yes, that's the right reaction. Don't do it. We were finishing building a house, which had its own costs. We furnished the house. So there are all these things that come with it. So I just really recommend that to make yourself feel secure in your first year when you will have so many other things already stressing you out, make sure that you budget generously for the standing up costs, the cost of learning your new place. That's one of the things that I would advise. Between us and our lived experience, we probably looked at 40 different countries, which most people probably don't do.
that's its own podcast, Serene.
That's a whole nother conversation. But in our investigations, we were able to come up with a framework for what we wanted and how we would decide if a country was a fit. For both of us, my husband and I are both people of color. We were really mindful of were we moving to a place that was going to feel welcoming at a minimum. We're getting older. We plan on aging in place. So we wanted someplace that had really good health care. We wanted a stable government. Those are the sorts of things that I recommend when people are thinking about moving abroad, that they delve really deeply into what's important to them and look around at their daily life as they're living in a place that's familiar and take moments to be grateful for what you are experiencing, because it will help you recognize, I want to keep being grateful for that when I move. I love a smooth road, or sometimes in the Bay Area, we have some real potholes. So moving to a place where, okay, yes, there's cobblestones in our town, but the road's really smooth. That's a great sign of infrastructure for me. Those are some of the things I think about.
Incredible.
Great insights. Serene, what's your next money conversation going to be and who's it going to be with?
As a retirement coach, I have the pleasure of having money conversations pretty frequently. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with two different clients. They're in very different situations. One of them, I am looking forward to having a conversation about getting their family more involved in the household budget. This particular client is carrying a lot of the burden of managing, earning all the things, and hasn't really shared where the family is with the family. That will be a really interesting, perhaps emotionally challenging for the client conversation in my personal life. So my husband and I do something that we call having a very sexy conversation about money. We plan a time and we plan to have
I
Negronis.
love that.
So we know a Negroni is coming at the end of the conversation, and we just sit down, we look at the budget, we talk about what we're investing in. Our next investment is a second property here in Portugal. So we're really having very active conversations pretty much weekly. Right now he's in Spain, so when he gets back, we'll be having another conversation.
Both sound like incredible conversations, both with your client and with your husband. So important. You're incredible. Before we let you go, where is the best place for listeners to find you?
So you can find me at Serene, not Serena, but serenelewis.coach. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and you can see some of the things that I've shared on LinkedIn about retirement.
Serene, thanks so much for joining us on Money Tales.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you for the conversation.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening. And leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspiriant. Go to aspiriant.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@aspiriant.com. See you next time.